Okay, so this is about calculating future MRR from subscriptions and charging this data. Just quickly about me, for those who don't know me, I'm a Bubble dev since 2018. I've helped people build more than 40 Bubble apps. I would say 5 of them are large ones, and some of them have like 1 million workflows per month or spend more than $1,000 on GPT credits per week, doing lots of background categorization. And now I'm mostly on one app managing payments and CRM for a client in the solar energy industry. And so in the energy industry, it's very common for people to have monthly payments, right? You pay for your electricity every month. And so actually the client wanted me to calculate MMR from subscriptions. And so let's quickly go through what this would entail. So I think I can even go on view slide somewhere, view mode. And so what do we need to do? We need to have a list of all clients. So it can be all users, all application forms, kind of all payments. So it's just per client, we need a list of things. And then we need to know how much each client pays per month. Like John pays 50 per month, Sarah pays 40 per month, and Peter pays 45 per month. And this can be different, right? So there's some very basic subscription apps where maybe there's premium and platinum level subscription, but there can also be, in my case, energy consumption, where depending on your consumption, some people pay 45 euro 30 cents and some pay 46 euro 20 cents. And then we also want to know how long they pay for. In this case, we're just assuming that they stay for 1 year, so 12 months. So they will have one payment each month, so 12 payments overall. Of course, we could also assume they pay for 24 months. And maybe long-term, to help with this future MMR, we can even know the drop-off rate or retention. So how many people who pay on the first month are still paying in the 12th month or in the 24th month. So it could be a certain percentage drop off. So effectively, what was paying $100 now pays $75 in a year if it's a 25% drop off. Okay, so the database setup, apart from having this list of users, we could create a new data type called forecaster. And each forecaster has the fields user and the date when the payment is made. So there would be one forecaster for the date January, one for the date February, one for the date March. So one for each month per user, and then the amount. And so as I just said, this amount could go down every month depending on the retention, right? So in the first month, we expect everyone to pay, but in 12 months, we expect maybe just 90% or 80% to pay. So we could reflect that by having a lower amount. Another optional field we could have is the pipeline progress. What this means is we could attribute different values for people who are just in your email list compared to people who actually have an account already, compared to people who paid for one course, because they all have kind of a different monetary value for the company. So we can use that to help predict our kind of revenue, I guess, in a year if we have these different numerical fields for every user. Okay, and then the process, what we want to do is, as I just said, is we want to have one forecaster per user per month. So what we should do is we should have backend workflows, one that goes through all users or through all applications, and then iterates through it. And then for each user, it creates one forecaster per month. So at the end, for a 12-month period, there are 12 forecasters per user per month. And then, of course, we could add another 12 months and factor a lower retention, or we could, as I said, reduce the retention by 3% every month. And so now we will have a quick look at the Bowler app. Just before, I will have a quick look at the attendees. And so what we do then is we go over to the app. So this is kind of the result we want, right? Like a monthly forecast how much our revenue looks. So why does it drop down here? Because here in the example, we just went for 12 months, and some people will start only in September, whereas some already start now in March. And then looking at these workflows. So the first one is it just goes through and it receives a list of all users, or in this case, user plans, it's a German word, and then what it does, it goes through this list, so it iterates, so it schedules itself. So what we did here is schedule API workflow, and then we scheduled itself, and we did so user minus item, user's first item, and we scheduled the next one to be in 1 minute. So it goes through all of them until this list of all users is empty, and then it does not schedule itself anymore. So this prevents it from being recursive to infinity. And then we schedule another workflow inside it. So here we click the empty box to create a new API workflow. And this, what it does is it creates this forecaster. What we need for this is it receives a user, going through this list of users, it receives the iteration, because we said for every user per month, we want to create one. So first iteration 1, then iteration 2, 3, 4 until 12. And then the progress is perhaps for people who are in a different pipeline stage. So some of them may just be on your email list. So we may later want to give them different values than people who already bought one item or who are already users. Okay, and so this creates a new thing for every user. In this case, we save the user, we save the amount. These are just German words. And then the date. This is what we said, per month we want to create one. So we take like the starting date of the first payment of the user, and then we add X months to it. So the first iteration will add 0 months, then 1 month, then 2 months, then 3 months. Because in this workflow, which schedules it, we told it to start with iteration 0. And so therefore it starts first with 0, and then it schedules itself, and it adds 1 iteration to it, and then it creates it again, this time with a date plus 1 month, and so on it goes until we have iteration smaller than 11, because we said we only want to create 12 rows per user. And it just schedules itself every second. So this should take 12 seconds. And then here we said per user, we would want to do every minute. Of course, we could just do every 15 seconds or something, because 12 seconds will not take the entire minute we took here. Okay, and then here we also save the pipeline progress, because we could attribute different values to it. So we could, for example, as I said, instead of taking the amount, we could also take the amount actual, which factors in the retention. So for example, if the retention every month is reduced by 1%, we could do the amount times 0.99 to the power of retention, because first there will be like 100% paying, and then 99%, then the next month 99 times 99%, which is, I don't know, 96%, and then the next month 93%. So it slowly goes down. And so then we could chart this instead of this, and then it just goes through it. So first we just go through each users until the list of users is empty, and then for this list of users we create a new thing for every user for every month, so it increases the month count by 1. And then we could also factor retention in by such a power law. Okay, and then we can have a quick look at the chart, line bar chart. And so there's 2 ways of kind of doing this. So the first one, we will take a search for these forecasts, maybe only the ones belonging to a certain drop-down selection or something. And then what we can do is we take here grouped by, and what we want is we want to group it by month. So it will group all users paying in March, and then all users paying in April and May, and so on. That's why we chose interval 1 month. And then we can start from the first paying user. So I just use arbitrary date time to put a certain date into it. And then we want to add an aggregation, and I aggregated the sum, because it will take all users' payments and sum them from March. So then I will get the March number, and then the next month, the sum of all users paying in April, and so on. So then we can take here for the value expression. So this is the y-axis, the current point sum of amount, and the label expression is just the month at the bottom. Okay, and then we can format the date, of course, in a way we want to format it. And then in another chart, I also have it, but this time daily. So it's grouped by date, but here I selected day, not month. So it will show every month, every day who is paying. So if we go back to the admin again, here is monthly, and then here even we see on a daily basis kind of when the payments are incoming. Of course, most payments on the 1st are incoming. And yeah, this kind of allows you to see how much money will I make in September or in October or this. Of course, this is here all just test data to show you the example. So I hope you learned something here. Again, we take here the sum of amount, but of course we could also do another data field instead of amount, the amount actual, which factors in the retention. Okay, is anything else we want to discuss? If you have any questions, do write them into the chat about being a Bubble developer or about this forecast calculation. So I just repeated perhaps one more time. We wanted to know how much people are paying on a monthly basis, and maybe in 9 months, 10 months, 11 months, what is our revenue? So to do this, we went user by user. So we created a backend workflow, which takes all users, there's a list of users, or in this case, a list of all plans, and it schedules another workflow for each user with the iteration 0. And this is just the first user in the list. Then it will schedule itself, take the first user away from the list, because then the list, let's say it started with 100 users. If we minus 1 user, the next list will be 99 users. And then the next one will be 98 users, 97, and we will always just take the first user in this list in step 1 and schedule another workflow with it until this list is empty. So it starts with 100 users, then 99, 98, 97. It will always take the first user from the list. And then for this user, it creates a new data type called a forecast. And we save the user or the plan to it. We save when the money comes in. So it's the start date of the first payment of that user plus however many months. So for every user, it's 1 month. We want 12 rows. So like they start paying tomorrow, we want a row for tomorrow, which is March. And then we want a row for next month, which is April. We want 1 row for May, June, July. So therefore, we count always up the iteration. So we increased the iteration here. We start 0, and then it will be date plus months iteration. And here, when we schedule this workflow by itself again, we just increase the iteration by 1 every time until we reach iteration of 11, because then we've already created 12 rows for that user. And what we can also do is we can not only take the payment amount that user is paying, so just a German amount for amount, in this case for electricity amount, but we could also factor in the retention. So we can take the amount times 99% to the power of iteration. So that means if they're paying $100 this month, maybe the next month, some of them drop off. So they will only be paying 99% of that $100 in 1 month because some drop off. And in 2 months, 99% to the power of 2. So like 96%, the next month, 93%, and so on. So this kind of allows us to put retention into the equation. And then we have this nice chart here where we take all the forecasters we've just created, because for each user, we've created 12 forecasters, 1 for each month. We take all of them, maybe the ones we selected in a dropdown, and then we group them by date incoming, like month, and have a starting date. And then we can show the current point sum of amount, because we added here a grouping which sums the amount of all payments that month. And we show the date money incoming, formatted as 3 March 25. Okay, and that's pretty much it. If there's any questions, do let me know. And yeah, you will find this on YouTube. Hope this helped you.